Hello, and thank you for joining me. My name is Mr. Jake Schweich, and I am the business and cybersecurity teacher here at Melbourne High School. I teach several different classes. I teach digital information technology, international business systems, accounting applications 1, computer and network security fundamentals, and cybersecurity essentials. Obviously, I'm not teaching all of those this year. This year, I do just have the digital information technology and, of course, the computer and network security fundamentals course. And this video is for the open house for computer and network security fundamentals. This course is a basic introduction to cybersecurity, and we put a real emphasis on essential computer and networking skills. So this is where the students are really going to get an understanding of how computers are networked together and how we transfer that digital information between computers. The final for this course is the Microsoft Technology Associate Networking Fundamentals certification. And if the students pass that and are doing well enough, they have an optional certification of the CompTIA Network Plus certification. These are both industry certifications and are recognized outside of the school system. So these are valuable for students on their way to a career. We use a blended learning model in my class, and one of the things that we use for that is Microsoft Teams. Um, for those of you not familiar, Microsoft Teams is the Microsoft equivalent of Google Classroom. And the reason I use this is because a lot of the classes that I teach work emphasize very heavily on the Microsoft Office products. The digital information technology class that I teach, they're specifically learning how to use Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And what I found is that Google Classroom does not play well with the Office files, the Excel files, Word files, and PowerPoint files. So I have been using BPS Teams, which is uh, very, very similar, and I actually think a little bit better, especially for our application. But this is the way that it's going to look, and so there's a lot of things here. So if the students, if your student is having problems, this is really the kind of the place where we go for our class. We also use something called Testout.com, and Testout.com. What this is actually our learning platform. And what's great about this platform is that it has video tutorials, and so it'll walk them through the concepts, even kind of show them how to do certain things. And then there are also labs that they can do inside of the program. And these labs vary from hardware labs where they're actually setting up physical components and plugging them in, as well as digital labs where they're accessing parts of the operating system or the control panel for switches and routers and configuring those. And what I really like about this, especially for the computer networking class, is a lot of the functions that we access for this class, the things that they need to know how to use, are turned off for student computers. I mean, obviously, we don't want students to have access to the control panel or to the configuration, IP configuration, or a lot of other things that we're wanting them to learn in this course. And so, what's great about Testout is that it gives them the ability to play around in a virtualized environment and access some of those things that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Also, it lets the student kind of move at their own pace because it is all of the training is right in here. There are videos, there are text-based lessons, there are labs, so everything is right here, so the students can move as quickly as they want, and that's where that definitely comes into play with that alternate certification because if they finish up earlier, there's actually other certifications beyond those that we could take a look at for those students that are really wanting to advance. One of the things that I actually require my e-learning students to do is a daily check-in. And the daily check-in is we do that through our Microsoft forum. And I need the students to do that in the first 10 minutes of every day. And this is for attendance purposes. As this course is an e-learning course, what that means is that our e-learning students are actually attached to Mel High. And so we have to verify that they have seat time. So I need to be able to tell the administration that your student is actually working on my work during our class block. So I do need them to fill that out at the first 10 minutes of every class period, and that's just to keep them marked as present in my class. Kind of think of it as if a student was to show up to school but to not to show up to my particular class. So they could mark themselves present and focus, but if they aren't doing my work and if they're not doing the check-in during my class period, then they will be counted as absent for my class. And for the students, if they're looking for that, where they can go is they can find that both in Teams. My e-learning students have an e-learning channel, and the daily check-in is right here at the top. And they just fill this out each day and click submit, and then it sends it to a Excel spreadsheet that I can use to verify the students. They can also go through Focus. So if you go into the web page for our class, you can go into resources and you can see that the daily check-in is right here, and that just takes them directly to the same form. Then we also, for all of my students, we use a weekly checkout, and this is a Flipgrid assignment that is usually done through our teams. Um, what this is actually more of a what we call a metacognition, and the purpose of this is it's not typically questions about the content. And I'll just actually pull that up real quick, see if we have one in here. And so what it is they're going to go in here and they're going to open up the Flipgrid, and it's going to ask them three questions. What was something you struggled with this week? What was something you did well on this week? And what is something you need to be successful next week? And what we found through research is that this type of reflection helps students to grow as a person and also to retain the information that they learn throughout the week. And so I require them to give them assignment for this at the end of each week. It is due by Sunday at 11:59 p.m., but I ask them not to wait. And the reason is to forget about it. It is a time sensitive assignment. So if they don't finish it by Sunday at 11:59 p.m., the window is passed. And kind of in my thinking is if you're waiting a week or two to try to reflect on what happened today, that the memory gets a little bit fuzzy. And so if they've passed the Sunday night, I don't feel that reflection is valid anymore, and so I will not accept any submissions. As a matter of fact, the assignment actually closes. And because of that, I mean, it's only worth 5 points. So in this class, nobody's going to fail if they don't do the weekly checkouts. But let's say that a student is kind of like right on the cusp between an A and a B or a B and a C. This not doing the weekly checkouts could mean the difference between that letter grade. And so, definitely check with your student and make sure that they're doing that. The grading for this is like I said, it's very heavy on the test out sections, and so each section is worth 30 points. One of the things that we found is that students that watch all the videos and listen to the audio do significantly better than students that don't. So I give 10 points just for watching the videos, and then I give 10 points for completing all the labs, and then 5 points for completing the practice question quiz at the end of each section, and then 5 points for finishing on time. Also, our career and technical education courses, we have certifications that are required as a final for that course, but the CTE classes work a little bit different. Whereas like a math or a history course, they would take that final exam one time at the end of the course, and that would count in that final exam slot as 20% of the class. We actually don't use it that way. We give the students multiple attempts at the test, and we typically do it several times throughout the semester. Because of that, what you'll see is that when they get their report card breakdown, there will actually be an NG or no grade in the final score. And so what we do is to kind of balance that out is I typically give a graded assignment in the semester that ties to this certification. And so for this class, the MTA Networking Fundamentals certification is actually worth 200 points. All students are required to make at least one attempt, and they can make a maximum of 3 attempts. And I take the best score out of any attempts that they make and use that for their grade. The certification exam, they pass the certification exam and earn that certification with a 700 out of 1,000 or better. So if the student earns a 700, they earn the certification, and I give them a 100% or a 200 out of 200 in the grade book. All of their scores, they're going to get the percentage earned plus 20 percentage points. So let's say the student gets a 60% on that exam. They did not pass the exam, but if that's the best score, they'll get an 80 in the gradebook. Notice all certification exams must be taken on site here at Melbourne High School. This is not my rule. This is not Mel High's rule. This is actually a Florida Department of Education rule. And the reason is that these industry certifications, there is funding that is attached to them to allow the students to take these tests. And it's seen as very much like an ACT or an SAT or like an EOC course or a test. And so we have to verify that the student taking the test is actually the student getting credit for it. And so because of this, any e-learning students will have to come on campus at least once. We are currently planning to hold those testing days um, on Friday afternoons after all of the other brick and mortar students have left, and so we'll be communicating that with that to you soon. But just know that they are going to be required to come on at least once. Um, I maintain lesson plans and deadlines in Focus, so especially for our e-learning students, if they go into the web page into our web page in Focus, you'll see that I typically put an announcement in our web page that kind of lists out the things that I've set as expectations for them for that week. Also, if they go into resources, you can see there's a lesson plan tab, and that takes them to Planbook. And what Planbook is it's a digital lesson plan book that I use to keep track of the assignments, and so they can track my lesson plans for this week and the next week. And then you can also find it if they go into Teams. If they go into the General tab, you'll see that up here at the top there is a lesson plan tab as well, which just takes them directly to Planbook. If there is a disciplinary issue in my class, the standard disciplinary ladder here at Melbourne High School is the first infraction is a warning, the second infraction is a parent contact and potential loss of classroom privileges, and that would typically be tied to whatever it is. So, like if they're abusing a pass, then we might change the rules on how we handle hall passes with them. If it's so we'll do that, and then after that, it's going to be a disciplinary referral that goes up to the administrative office. I handle electronics a little bit different in my classroom. Um, there are a lot of times where students are just they're doing labs and they're just plugging away at labs and changing configurations, and so I do allow students to listen to music while they work. But I let the students know that if I feel that they're using it in a way that is detrimental or disruptive to the learning, that I'm going to ask them to stop. That typically comes like if a student is consistently they're changing their song on their playlist every 30-45 seconds, or they're getting distracted by text messages or social media. I'm going to ask them to put the phone away, and if it becomes a problem, then they would not be allowed to use their devices in my classroom. Also, the electronics policy applies to my classroom computers for my brick and mortar students. Um, One of the things that I stress with the students is online games are not safe. There have actually been in the last several years there have been lots of cases of malware being input in some of these more popular free online games. And so, the computers that are in my lab, I have to pay for these out of my program funds. And so, if a student goes on and they get malware on the computer and it destroys the computer, I'm going to have to pay for that, and that could be upwards of $1,500 to replace all of the computers. I know they don't look like much to the students, but um, they're not cheap. And in addition to that, these computers are connected to the Brevard Public School network, and so literally tens of thousands of devices are connected to the same network. And if they download malware on their computer, it could potentially infect every computer in our network. And so I feel that the reward of them being able to play an online game in my class certainly does not match the risk of just the malware, the cybersecurity reality of the internet. And so I've asked them not to use my computers for online gaming. The exceptions would be is sites like typing.com or Cool Math Games, or some of those that I've been able to kind of like search through, and I feel that they're appropriate, and but other than that, they're not allowed to use them for other things other than classwork. Because the electronics policy at Mel High is a little bit more strict, the disciplinary ladder for electronics is shorter. If they are using electronics inappropriately, I will give them a warning, and then the very next time I reserve the right to issue a disciplinary referral. Um, if you have any questions or need to talk to me and need some clarification on anything, feel free to email me, schweich.jacob@brevardschools.org. Again, I teach first through third period, and so I typically have some time in fourth period. But I'm almost always at my computer because of the nature of our classroom setting this year. So if you email me, I try to get back with you pretty quickly. But you can also message me through Focus. Thank you so much for attending the open house this year, and hope you have a great evening.